great future. Become a member today.
Walking into the building for the first time after the shooting, it was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM at HD1 San Francisco. An Odyssey station.
Good morning, area.
It's time to wake up. It's 5, and we're live.
Oh, is this thing on? I don't care. I want him to hear.
This is the Pregame Show, your early morning shot of sports on 95.7 The Game.
Come on!
Oh, yes. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Pregame Show. I am your host, Joe Spadoni, and thank you for joining me bright and early, 5 a.m. on a Wednesday. Middle of the week, almost there, folks. Once you get through today, the rest of the week seems a lot more manageable. Got a great show for you today. NFL free agency. It's just, NFL anything really is just undefeated, but the storylines coming out, all the different trades, surprises, non-surprises, 49ers making some more moves yesterday, players moving on, yada, yada, yada. But biggest storylines, we're going to tackle them today. You know, there's no NBA game to react to yesterday. Did a lot of Warriors yesterday. But today, we need to tackle some of these national storylines. And I'm very grateful, and I'm lucky to be able to be doing this time slot from 5 to 6, in which I can talk about whatever I want. Boss isn't listening. Shout out, Matt. Are you? Never text me that he is. Hurts my feelings. He promotes it, though. Appreciate that, Nahigian. Appreciate it. But I get a very, nuanced takes in, let's just say, during the pregame show when it comes to certain topics that, let's just face it, during drive time with a morning roast, you might not be able to touch. So appreciate all of you joining me here, 5 a.m., bright and early, for just getting off work, getting on work, getting ready for school, getting ready for a trip. No rain today. It's still windy, so please be safe driving out there. And be sure to download that Odyssey app and take 95.7 The Game anywhere you want to go. Just download that bad boy, favorite 95.7 The Game. And, it doesn't have to be 95.7 The Game. You know what? Yeah, you can listen to me, but you got all your other stuff if you're into pop culture, if you're into polka music, if you're into Shark Week, all that sort of stuff. We got every single thing you need on that Odyssey app. So download it. Hit me up on Twitch and YouTube. We are streaming live there. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Spadoni_Joe. Appreciate the follows there. All right. So some news and notes surrounding the San Francisco 49ers. Re-signing center Jake Brendel to a 4-year deal that has a max value of $20 million with $8 million guaranteed. That per Ian Rappaport yesterday. Excuse me. Tabor Pepper. We already knew that. Long snapper. The safety, Deshaun Gibson. Knew that. Kevin Givens, defensive lineman, signed a 1-year extension with the team. We already know about Hargrave. And then Sam Darnold. Some of that info came out yesterday. So his new contract is a max value of $11.5 million with incentives. That was per Tom Pelissero, $3.5 million guaranteed. And yeah, you had some departures. Amenahu, you saw that one late last night with the Chiefs. That one's going to hurt. Samson Ebukam, see you later. Jimmy Ward, see you later. So there's going to be a lot of new faces on this team, and you're going to miss some of the old ones. But who does it better than Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch when it comes to revamping and retooling that offense? Defense is going to have some question marks. And that secondary, let's not get it twisted. Jimmy Ward, he was a really solid player for that team. Can't believe, we were talking in the group chat yesterday, Jimmy Ward has been around since 2014. That's a long time. That's a very, very long time. And it's just kind of crazy. Out of Northern Illinois, it just kind of sneaks up on you. 9 years ago. Man, lots changed since then, obviously. Guy's been a part of Super Bowl run, NFC Championship runs. He's seen his fair share of bad quarterback play. He's seen his fair share of good quarterback play. And then, after it's all said and done, he joins D'Amico Ryans down in Texas, out with the 49ers, and goodbye, Jimmy Ward. In the secondary, it also lost Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley goes on a cheap deal to the Detroit Lions. So that secondary that was already kind of thin, it felt like, got even thinner. Now, do they address that still? Do they address it in the NFL draft? We shall see. You're expecting guys like Hufanga, obviously, to step more up. All-Pro last year. Lenore, all those sort of guys. So a lot happening on the 49ers front as it pertains to the NFL free agency. And it officially starts today, folks. NFL free agency. Yeah, we were in the legal tampering period, so you're seeing all the other stuff leak out that it's going to happen. But now teams can actually sign the players that they've been in contact with. Now they can actually happen. 1 o'clock, West Coast time, it officially begins. So we will have all of that news, info, everything being leaked. The rap sheets, the Schefters, the Peloseros, all of that right here on 95.7 The Game. So be locked and loaded all day. Morning Roast, Steiny Goo, Willard Dibbs, the pregame show, all of that. Keep it right here. And I'm burying the lead. We also got a Warriors game on top of it tonight. Coverage of that starts at 6 o'clock. Warriors Live as the Warriors take on the Los Angeles Clippers. Both these two teams tied in the standings right now. And it's going to be very interesting. Warriors have the tiebreak. But Clippers, they want revenge. They lost to the Stephen Curry-less Golden State Warriors on the last homestand. It was a really bad loss for them. Really big win for the Warriors, so much so that I proclaimed them to be the team to beat in the West, and I picked them to win the West right after that. I'm sticking to it. But the Clippers, they're going to want their revenge. Warriors, they haven't fared very well in Los Angeles this year. It's kind of been a house of horrors at the arena formerly known as Staples Center down in Los Angeles. So Warriors, they're back on track tonight. Can't wait for that. Can they exercise these road demons, folks? Can they? We keep waiting. You know, 2 good wins against the Bucks and the Suns, albeit without Giannis and without Kevin Durant. But my God, the road, it always feels like every single team they're playing against just suddenly turns into the Monstars. It's like the little aliens from Space Jam sucked all the power away from Steph, Dre, and Clay, and then gave it to your Paolo Bancheros and whatnot. And I should be more respectful of Paolo Banchero. A hell of a player. First overall pick in the NBA draft last season. But you get what I'm saying. Guys turn into world beaters when they're not supposed to. Got guys named Chanchar and Conchar and all these different Charmanders out here. Shout out Pokemon. Burning you up. So can you get the job done, Warriors? Starts tonight, first game of this road trip, and we'll have all that coverage for you right here on 95.7 The Game. Okay, so I teased it at the top. We want to dive into some of these national storylines. And maybe the biggest storyline that still hasn't broken, maybe it will finally today, is Aaron Rodgers. What's going on with him? You know, he says, the decision's not going to be long now. You know what? This decision. Okay, bud. What are the Jets doing? Like, this isn't going to work. Am I the only one that clearly sees that? Then let me know at 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570 if you would like to get involved in the chat. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. He's 39. I don't know if you know this about the conference, but it's stacked. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, well, we think still, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. Like, this conference is not the NFC. So if you're trading for this guy, you're basically sacrificing your future, I believe, for maybe a year, maybe 2. Like, you're hitching your wagon to a guy that might just be done after next season. Do you really want to do that? Well, I guess right now they have no choice. They're lost out on the Jimmy Garoppolo market, lost out on the Derek Carr market. Other than trading for another quarterback, which I don't see lightly, I don't think they're going to get Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, can start negotiating with teams at 1 o'clock today. Since he represents himself, he wasn't allowed in the legal tampering period to talk to other teams. Now, that period is over. Free agency officially begins today at 1 o'clock West Coast time, and he can begin talking to teams. But if you're the Jets, like, what are you doing? Saleh, I know you feel desperate for your job right now, desperate to win in that market, in that city. I understand it. You're competing against everyone. Hell, the Knicks are making the playoffs. They're looking good. Jets got to be doing something, and football, I believe, will always be king there. Some will have you believe that it's basketball when the Knicks are good. I disagree. I think football is still king no matter where and what market. It's football, 24/7. And I understand Robert Saleh is in a tricky situation here because he's trying to save his job too, save his ass. And maybe Aaron Rodgers for a year gets that done. What happens right after that? When you're back to Zach Wilson or Joe Flacco. White's already gone. Mike White, he's gone. South Beach. See you later. He's going to have a great opportunity to start some games, I'm sure, with the Tua situation. Him getting concussed every other game, it seems like. Really felt like Tua should have reevaluated the situation he's gotten himself into in the NFL. All those concussions, man, what we saw last year, yeah. Just don't want to see anything on the field happen that you don't want to see. And we saw some scary stuff last year, obviously, Damar Hamlin. Just when a guy has that many concussions, it's just, So we'll monitor that situation all next year. That'll be a storyline for sure when it comes to Tua and the Dolphins. But as it pertains to the New York Jets, like this has flames written all over it. And not the good kind. I'm talking dumpster fire flames. I'm not talking En Fuego. Shout out Dan Patrick. I'm talking dumpster fire written all over it if they trade for Aaron Rodgers. Because let's just dive into this. Okay, they trade for Aaron Rodgers. They just signed Alan Lazard, by the way, to a 4-year deal. Knows him well. Aaron Rodgers reportedly gave the Jets his wish list, quote unquote, of guys he would like to play with next year. When you already have a Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall, you would assume, would come back at some point from his injury. He was out all last season. So, okay, that's a nice little offense you got going there. Look at the division first. That's a hard division. You got 2 playoff teams in that division alone from last season. In the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Then you got the Patriots, who always seem to be competing and playing hard. They're always at least going to hover around 500. I know you can't really technically go 500 in today's game, but I guess you can go 8-1, but you know what I'm saying. So it's not going to be an easy conference, let alone your own division. I already listed off all the quarterbacks you're going to have to beat to get to a Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, and that just includes Patrick Mahomes, who we've already established on this show is the 3rd greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. So what is the Jets' game plan here? What is their goal? To just get to the playoffs for one season? Are you really sacrificing all of that just for a shot at the playoffs? Really? Am I crazy here? Am I the only one? Let me know at 888-957-9570. Hit me up via text or phone call. Xfinity Mobile text line 888-957-9570. Same number. Hit me up on Twitch or YouTube, Twitter. Am I crazy? Like, this is just has dumpster fire written all over it. Am I wrong? What do you think? 888-957-9570. Raleigh on the YouTube chat. The Aaron Rodgers stuff looks crazy to me. Because it is. It's nuts. I don't know what the Jets are doing. I don't get it. 916, you couldn't be more wrong. The Yankees are the biggest sports market in New York, not football. Well, New York City is the market. So, yeah, the Yankees are big, obviously. They've also been struggling mightily, and nothing compares to the NFL. Ratings-wise, couldn't be more wrong, 916. NFL is always king. Always. Sure, the fan base, you might see more Yankee hats all over the place. But the Giants, the Jets, it's not like anything else. It's not like anything else. Just like the Niners, it's different than the Giants, it's different than the Warriors. It's just different. The NFL is king for a reason. You have you're going to have bad games next year. I'm trying to think of who's going to be a bad matchup next year. The Panthers versus the Bucks on a Thursday night is going to draw better than any NBA Finals game. Any World Series game. Like, it's just NFL's king. And New York City and Robert Saleh, they're feeling it, even though they play in New Jersey, but they're feeling the heat. And I get wanting to get to the playoffs as soon as possible. And you felt like if you were just a healthy quarterback away last year. Mike White couldn't stay healthy. Zach Wilson regressed just horribly. I don't even know if regressed is the right word. He just always kind of stunk. He's a bust. And that whole draft class, by the way, as it pertains to Trey Lance, who was part of that draft class, it's looking like stinkers all over the place, other than Trevor Lawrence. And we'll wait and see on Justin Fields, who showed signs last year of being a franchise quarterback as they're beefing up that wide receiver room. DJ Moore, Chase Claypool. That's going to be exciting to watch. They already have Cole Kmet. So Darnell Mooney. Just protect the guy. Can we do that? Can we protect Justin Fields, who's been having to run for his life all last season? Albeit great for my fantasy numbers, but I'd like to see the kid get healthy. But that draft class, again, not looking good, and the Jets whiffed on it with Zach Wilson. We'll wait and see with Trey Lance. He just hasn't been healthy. So, I mean, it's hard to call him a bust when it comes to health, but it would be. I mean, let's just, heaven forbid he gets hurt this season, and you have to at least go into the season. That's why they got Sam Darnold. And we're going to hear from Brian Baldinger in a few minutes here as it regards to Sam Darnold and why he thinks it was a good move to bring him in. But when you whiff that high in the draft, when it comes to a quarterback, it could set you back. Now, the Niners are in a unique position. The Jets, they feel like they need a guy right now. And a 39-year-old? Man, that's all bad. That's all bad. There's dumpster fire written all over it. What say you? 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. 650, Xfinity Mobile text line. You're crazy. The Jets getting Rodgers is a good move. He's still elite. Is he? I think he's a really good quarterback. There was times last year where he just looked awful. Now, you might say Spadoni. That team wasn't very good. He lost his number one weapon in Devontae Adams. Well, they drafted a guy in the first round, Christian Watson out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance's old teammate. He looked pretty good towards the end of the year. I get it. Other than that, nothing to write home about. Lazards and whatnot. They lost Valdez-Scantling to the Chiefs. But he looked like he was getting old. Looked like he was getting old. Now, I get it. You go to the Jets, you're going to have a great defense. You're going to have some weapons. The Garrett Wilson, again, another guy in his rookie season last year, bringing a familiar face, Alan Lazard. But still, I'm just looking at that division, and it's no lock that he's even the second best team in the division. The Dolphins are really good. Traded for Jalen Ramsey, who may not be the same player he was, still pretty good. Xavier Howard still in the secondary. They have Bradley Chubb. They have studs on that defense. And then Buffalo, you have Diggs, you have Allen. You got a lot of pieces over there. So it's not even a lock that you're going to be making it out of your own division, let alone represent the conference in the Super Bowl. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I was thinking the same thing as Edgar's thinking on the YouTube chat. Edgar Cervantes. This Rodgers move has a Brett Favre at the end of his career kind of feel. I agree. I totally agree. And remember, that didn't end well. It only ended kind of well with the Minnesota Vikings when they had that miracle run towards the end, and he threw that inexplicable interception when they were going down to have the game-winning drive against the New Orleans Saints. Like, what are you doing? Ugh. But I don't feel sorry for Brett Favre for obvious reasons. 888-957-9570. What do you think of the New York Jets trying to tie their knot to Aaron Rodgers? We'll continue to talk about that. Give me your thoughts there. I wanted to pivot a little bit to what Brian Baldinger had to say about Sam Darnold, who did sign a one-year deal with the San Francisco 49ers, or reportedly going to sign. I know, free agency officially starts today, 1 o'clock West Coast time, and we will be live and local all day right here on 95.7 The Game, breaking down all the latest moves. Another big move that came to fruition yesterday, Darren Waller to the New York Giants. I have thoughts on that for a third-round pick. A lot of interesting layers from Vic Tafur of The Athletic when he tweeted out some of the reasons why Josh McDaniels, head coach of the Raiders, may have had a little tiff with Darren Waller, tight end of the Raiders, former tight end of the Raiders, now with the Giants. So we'll get into that a little bit. But Brian Baldinger joined the Morning Roast yesterday, and he had some interesting thoughts on the Hargrave signing, on Mike McGlinchey signing with the Broncos, and loving the addition of Sam Darnold. Let's start with the biggest acquisition of the offseason thus far for the San Francisco 49ers, and that's the acquisition of Javon Hargrave. What do you think about it, Baldy?
He's my number one free agent. You know, they traded DeForest Buckner 3 years ago, and they take the first-round pick, and they drafted Javon Kinlaw. It has not worked out yet. He's been injured. He has not been productive, largely productive. But Javon Hargrave is a huge upgrade. And if that's the case, now, maybe they play together, and Eric Armstead goes to end, who knows? They got flexibility. But Javon Hargrave is a difference maker. He's been the best defensive lineman in Philadelphia 2 years in a row. They led the league in sacks with 62 this year. He got 11 of them. He got one in the postseason. He had 12 sacks from the defensive tackle position. And his interior push is almost second to none in the NFL. It's unbelievable that they got Hargrave.
It is unbelievable in hindsight, and it feels like it's just kind of put on the back burner, right? I know D-tackle isn't the sexiest thing, not named Chris Jones or Aaron Donald, so D-tackle's not that sexy, but Hargrave was a beast last year. That whole Eagles D-line was a beast, so it was shocking when they really didn't do anything in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, and that Chiefs O-line kind of ate their lunch, if you will. Hey, Baldy, what makes Hargrave so special?
He's as powerful as an interior pass rusher is in this league. He can put, you give him one-on-ones with any guard in this league, he's going to push, he's going to walk him right back to the quarterback. And he's got some pass rush moves too, but his power is second to none. And so that's what consistently shows up. A lot of guys are just titty dancing in this business. They're standing straight up and they're chest bumping with each other. That's not crushing the pocket. This guy is a force. All right, inside. Dexter Lawrence had a great year. You can go through the list of guys. Aaron Donald was off. But you look at guys that can walk back double teams and offensive guards and centers in his business. Very few could do it like Javon. That's his number one. That's his number one skill.
I really played that clip only for the titty dancing part, which I'm not going to say too many times because I don't want to get in trouble here at 5 a.m. for FCC violations. I'm pretty sure you can say that. But my God. And Vontae just couldn't help himself. I just left the laughter in there because I was the one that ended up cutting some of those highlights from that interview. Baldy's the best. That guy, if you're not following Brian Balding on Instagram, you're missing out. My guy gets after it in the Bahamas, in Belize. This guy is island hopping. This guy scuba diving. This guy's fishing, swimming with the dolphins. He's living his best life. Shout out Brian Balding here. Really nice guy, too. When I got to meet him in the studio last year. And thank God Brian Baldinger was here last year. Pretty sure it was the day after the Raiders choked against Baker Mayfield and the Rams, and my fandom was being questioned internally and on air with all of you. And Baldy being there definitely softened the blow for me. Anyways, here's more from Baldy on Mike McGlinchey signing with the Broncos. Yes, Mike McGlinchey no longer with the San Francisco 49ers. Niners did re-sign Colton McKivitz last week to a 2-year extension. You have to feel like McKivitz is going to have a good shot to compete for that starting right tackle position. We'll wait and see if that feels good. Do you feel great about that? Well, I know a lot of Niners fans didn't feel great about Mike McGlinchey when it came to pass protection. Hey, Baldy, how do you feel about that?
You're going to see it. You're going to see it around the business right now. They're going to overpay for offensive linemen because it's a position of need. And so, San Francisco was going to pay that amount of money. They really can't. When you got to get Nick Bosa taken care of and you sign Javon Hargrave, you got to go, okay, what's the priority? Do we sign the right tackle? And that's not a knock on Mike, in San Francisco. You prioritize what you can. And to me, if I could sign Javon Hargrave versus re-signing Mike McGlinchey, I wouldn't even bat an eyelash. I'd go get Hargrave. Build another elite defensive line, and they have not been elite since DeForest left. So, they were a disappointment in the postseason this year, and a big part was the interior push. So, McGlinchey gets $50 million. God bless him.
God bless him and Godspeed. It's a tough division, too. Tough division. AFC West, not easy. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Chris Jones, now Charles Omenihu, who you know well, Mike. He goes over to the Chiefs. Max Crosby, Chandler Jones. It's not going to be easy. That division is stacked. It is scary. Sean Payton now joins it. You think the Broncos, they can't get any worse. So they could only go up from what they were last year. So Godspeed and God bless, but I will take Javon Hargrave if that means Mike McGlinchey, see you later. And that's ultimately what happened as Mike McGlinchey is headed to the Broncos. Niners bringing Hargrave. And that was the biggest kind of acquisition thus far of this free agency period, which officially starts again today, 1 o'clock, West Coast time. We'll have all that coverage right here on 95.7 The Game. All right. So, Sam Darnold kind of caused a little stir on social media if you're on Twitter and whatnot. If you are on Twitter, follow me at Spadoni_Joe. Because we're under the assumption, at least I am, that Brock Purdy is not going to be fully ready to go starting week 1 of the regular season. Now, they said that he's going to start throwing. That's the goal. At least start throwing in 3 months after the surgery. And the surgery was last Friday, and it was successful. They didn't need a complete reconstruction or all that. So he should be throwing in 3 months. That's puts you about a couple months there, 2 more months, if you will, getting ready, getting that arm strength back before the regular season. So if he really is the quarterback of the future, that is Brock Purdy, you want to keep that guy safe. You don't want to rush him back. You want to be very safe, very gentle, do all the proper procedures, because rushing this guy back and him re-injuring it real quick could ruin his career. Now you bring in Sam Darnold to compete with Trey Lance, to back him up, what have you. I think it signaled to a lot of the fan base that, listen, Sam Darnold could push for a starting spot in this league. Sam Darnold could push Trey Lance. Could Sam Darnold be the starter week 1? You know what? I think he could. Now, you're going to have that reaction or the complete opposite one way or the other. It's however you feel about Trey Lance. This is what happens in any fandom. You start latching on to anything that reinforces your preconceived opinion on a player. If you've been out on Trey Lance, you're going to want Sam Darnold to start. If you've been in on Trey Lance, you're going to want Sam Darnold to back him up. What does Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch feel about that? We'll break that down and more on the other side. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. This is the pregame show. Joe Spadoni. Come on back. Free agency frenzy today on 95.7 The Game. Also, it is a Warriors Wednesday on 95.7 The Game.
NFL free agency has started.
QB3, or potentially 2, or potentially 1, will go by the name Sam Darnold.
And
See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
Now, back to the pregame show on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Pre-game show, Joe Spadoni. Free agency frenzy here today on 95.7 The Game as NFL free agency officially begins 1 o'clock West Coast time, and we will be here live and local all day to make sure we are caught up on all the latest happening around the NFL. A couple of news and notes from the league yesterday. Jimmy Ward to the Texans, Samson Ebukam to the Titans, Emmanuel Mosley to the Lions. Just to name a few. Darren Waller going to the New York Football Giants for a third-round pick. That third-round pick, by the way, started out in Kansas City as a comp pick for when Ryan Poles, the now GM of the Chicago Bears, moved from KC to Chicago. KC got the comp pick. They then traded for Kadarius Toney last season, who obviously helped in their Super Bowl run. And then now the Giants flipped that comp pick to the Raiders for Darren Waller. And that whole story is just fascinating. Real quick, Vic Tafer, the Athletic, who covers the team, had this little news nugget after it went down. Quote, the trade comes 10 days after Darren Waller's wedding to Aces guard Kelsey Plum. The time is only interesting because Josh McDaniels accidentally leaked the news of his wedding to reporters at the NFL Scouting Combine. Waller was upset with McDaniels when the Las Vegas Review-Journal posted a story announcing the wedding was scheduled later in the week. The couple had not publicly announced their plans to get married. Huh. The Raiders just can never have a normal offseason in the history of my life. It's what it's destined to be. I mean, first off, the story's kind of hilarious. Just wanting a private wedding when you are two public figures in the sporting world. Just the notion of that is funny to me. It's never going to happen. It's just not. I'm not going to get super mad. I understand if Raider fans are very upset. They flirted with trading Darren Waller last season for a second rounder. And then now fans are just, oh, well, why did they just pull the trigger? They should have just done it for the second. Well, they got a third rounder this year. And he was hurt all season. So, listen, you go all in last year because you think it was going to work, and it didn't. It just didn't work. You go all in on the offense, you trade for Devontae Adams, all that sort of stuff. You roll the dice, see if it could happen. They lost a lot of close games. Maybe if it went their way, they were keeping a lot of these guys. Maybe. But it didn't. So now you have to move back. You have to reevaluate, which is what Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are doing. And they got to push forward. Now, the value, third-round pick for an older player who's hurt a lot, that's just what you're going to see. Older players, injury history, who make a lot of money, generally you don't get first or second round picks for them unless they are very, very good or an elite quarterback. Now, Darren Waller's good. He's very good when he's healthy. He hasn't been that the last few seasons. You saw it with Jalen Ramsey, who is not the same player he used to be. Still good, but you saw him go for a third-round pick. Stephon Gilmore traded from the Colts to the Cowboys. Older player, still very good. 5th round. So it is what it is. Older players who have injury history or at a position like a corner who are getting older, salary ties into a lot of this stuff when it comes to picks. People don't want to tie their, get knotted up, if you will. Shout out Kelsey Plum and Darren Waller. Congratulations, by the way. They don't want to get knotted up to these guys forever and get tied into bad money with guys that are injured all the time. Just look at Michael Thomas with the Saints. Look at that. How's that going? Pretty sure he re-signed or restructured something for a 1-year deal. Now he actually has a quarterback in Derek Carr, so we'll see how that goes. But just a really funny story, and I had to share that one with all of you. 888-957-9570. We've been talking about some of the bigger storylines around the NFL as NFL free agency officially begins at 1 o'clock Pacific time today. And we were talking about Sam Darnold signing a 1-year deal with the San Francisco 49ers and kind of the news and notes of that. The value as a max value of $11.5 million with incentives. That's obviously if he starts a certain amount of games for the 49ers next season. If he's on the roster through so-and-so, I am sure. And it's $3.5 million guaranteed. And Brian Baldinger joined the morning roast yesterday with Bonte and Shasky, and he had just nothing but nice things to say about fight on Sam Darnold.
I love it. I mean, I like Sam personally, and we all know that, on paper, it looks like it was a bust, but I don't believe Sam Darnold is a bust. I don't believe that that's who he is. He's got a very good temperament to play the position. He's very smart. He's never been around an organization like San Francisco. He's never been with a play caller like Kyle Shanahan. I love him in San Francisco. It's a 1-year deal. But you get a guy that I believe Trey is going to be the guy, but if he isn't, for whatever reason, production, injury, you don't know. You need a guy. And we know that Brock Purdy probably won't be ready to start the season, probably isn't going to be there in this offseason. So it's not even about Brock Purdy at this point. It's about, let's make sure that we're set up if things don't go well with Trey. And oh, by the way, if Sam turns out that he reaches his potential in this offense with this coach and with this organization, like we just saw it. Like Jimmy G came back, Brock Purdy stepped in, didn't miss a beat.
That's the biggest what if in Sam Darnold's career thus far. A lot of people, if you just only had a good head coach. Well, he's got one. He's got probably the best offensive play caller, that is, outside of Andy Reid in the NFL. You got the guy. If you don't win under Kyle Shanahan, you ain't winning anywhere else. So this is a perfect opportunity for him. And E-Dog Evan Giddings made a good point to me yesterday, producer extraordinaire of Steiny and Guru and also co-host of the 415ers podcast. Find that on all your Odyssey apps with Mark Grandy. He was like, you know what? It's kind of similar to Mitch Trubisky when he went to the Bills. It didn't work out with the Bears, signed kind of a 1-year backup deal. Josh Allen didn't even play really. Maybe had a cup of coffee here and there, but kind of got his value back a little bit and was able to get a starter job in Pittsburgh the next season. Now it didn't work out. He stunk. They drafted Kenny Pickett. He eventually took over. So this could work with Sam Darnold not even playing much, maybe a game here or there, or just coming in for a few plays if someone gets the wind knocked out of him, if you will. But I think a lot of Niner fans see this signing, and I know I do kind of, as you know what, maybe they're not completely sold on Trey. Maybe they just draft this guy who's just good enough to push him. And maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch see in the guy. They see maybe just depth at the position, see a guy who they may have rated highly coming out of that draft class. Remember, that was the Mike McGlinchey draft class of 2018. McGlinchey now gone to the Bears. You just look at some of the players drafted in that class. Baker Mayfield, right? You had, obviously, Josh Allen was the big one there. Lamar Jackson, Josh Rosen, who was the bust. And that was the one where Colton Miller, you had the coin flip with the Raiders and the Niners, obviously McGlinchey. So just a lot of interesting news and nuggets as it pertains to the 49ers when it comes to Sam Darnold. And here's more from Baldy again, who joined the morning roast yesterday, just talking more on Sam Darnold and some of his past mistakes.
He has made mistakes under pressure. No question about it. I can put together a Baldy breakdown on the mistakes that he's made under pressure. We saw that from Jimmy G at times. Yeah. We didn't see that from Brock Purdy, and that's what kind of made us love the guy. Under pressure, guy made great decisions. With Sam, to this point, he hasn't made great decisions under pressure, but he's never been surrounded with the talent that he's surrounded with now in San Francisco. I think it's just a smart, safe, fun signing that could be really, really lucrative for Sam.
Yeah, again, it could be. If he just stays on the bench, he could, even just by doing that, kind of up his value, if you will. If he comes in here and there, looks fine, completes some passes, some handoffs, yada, yada, yada. Will Kyle Shanahan even keep 3 quarterbacks on the active roster at the start of the season? It's all going to be depending on Brock Purdy, all of that, and we'll get all that info as the months keep going on. But it's going to be fascinating. This is a name, when you first saw it happen, that you're going to start hearing guys say it. I think Sam Darnold, he has a great chance of being QB1 week 1 for the San Francisco 49ers, because you're just going off where he was drafted, his prospect. People still look at his age. And how old is Sam? Can't be that old. Late 20s? Sam Darnold, fight on. Looking at here, Wikipedia, yada, yada, yada. Sam Darnold, na. Thank you. 25. It's only 25. That's actually younger than I thought. There's like 27 at least. But again, they're going to be looking at this guy. He's still young. He's got all the tools. He was one of the highly sought-after quarterbacks in that draft. I think most people thought Sam Darnold would be the number one pick in that draft, and then the Browns ended up taking Baker Mayfield, and that didn't work out, obviously. So people last off of their draft stock and off what teams thought of them way longer than what the film actually says sometimes. Sometimes, and you heard it from Baldy, the guy makes mistakes under pressure. Well, then why do you want him as your quarterback? If a quarterback is making constant mistakes under pressure, then he's not the guy. But Baldy sees something in him. Apparently Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch see something in him. And I cannot wait to see what happens come training camp and all that. One more segment. I need to get Joe Shasky's thoughts on that. I need to get his thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers situation. What's going on with Lamar Jackson? That Darren Waller story is nuts. Joe Shasky joining me next. The Cross Jover, 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. Don't forget, Warriors taking on the Clippers tonight. That is down in Los Angeles, but we will have all that coverage right here on 95.7 The Game starting at 6 o'clock with Warriors Live. John Dickinson will have that before tossing it over to the great Tim Roy, who will be on the call tonight with Jim Barnett. Come on back. This is the pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
95.7 The Game's new lineup, The Morning Roast.
Welcome back. Pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game. We've been breaking down the free agent frenzy, if you will. Legal tampering is officially over come, 1 o'clock West Coast time, Pacific time. That's when NFL free agency officially begins, so you can start seeing all the signings come to fruition. Lamar Jackson, that's a big name. He could start talking to teams because he represents himself during the legal tampering period. He's not allowed to talk to these teams because he's still a player, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, he can start talking to teams starting at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Joe Shasky joins me here for the Cross Over. And Joe, before I get to Lamar, before I get to all the Niners moves yesterday, I started the show off, and I get the luxury of, talking about national stuff for an hour here because 5 o'clock, you can kind of just wet your whistle, if you will, on some of the bigger storylines. The Aaron Rodgers thing to the Jets, which seems kind of just inevitable at this point, feels like dumpster fire written all over it, right?
Why do you say that?
I say that because you feel like you are sacrificing a lot when you're just bringing in that much salary and bringing in a player who, let's face it, he's toxic.
Yeah, well,
he's
I would
a toxic player. You're bringing on to a young team that looks promising, that feels like they're just a quarterback away. I get it. A quarterback away doesn't mean you go get a 39-year-old guy who may be checked out after one season.
Who doesn't like to play well with young players.
Yes, who draws a lot of attention on himself, and that's on purpose, by the way. He draws a lot of that attention on purpose. I don't understand the end game for the Jets here.
Well, the end game is keeping their jobs. Robert Saleh.
For a season?
Well, I mean, I just think Robert Saleh knows that he needs to win. And also, when you look at what's going on in that division in particular, Miami is loaded outside of quarterback. Buffalo has the quarterback. New England's in a weird spot.
But they're still not a team that you can take lightly.
No, because of Belichick. Yes. And the Jets, I mean, you look at their roster. Garrett Wilson is the best wide receiver no one talks about.
They had both rookies of the year on offense and defense.
I know. And then Breece Hall is coming back from an injury, but he's a stud. And, they got minimal production from Mike White. I mean, we have overrated Mike White to the fullest, but minimal production from Mike White, and they almost backed into the playoffs, right? And so if you're a Jets fan, you do feel like you're one quarterback away. Now, it's a risk that I think they have to take. They've been so irrelevant for so long. I understand, staying the course sounds great, right? It sounds great. A Jets executive, I don't know exactly which one, said something to the effect of, we could nail every single draft pick, but if this Zach Wilson one weighs us down and we can't overcome it, we're all gone. Yet, if they would have just nailed the quarterback pick and whiffed on all these other picks, we'd be looking at it totally different.
It makes you appreciate the Kyle Shanahan and the John Lynches because
it really does.
They nailed Purdy,
exactly.
And it looks, as of right now, we don't know. I'm hoping the best for Trey this season. As of right now, it's not looking like a great pick right now, but that's because of injuries. He hasn't played, all that sort of stuff. But you got the backup option in Brock Purdy. You've seen what you've had with him, at least with 8 games. Maybe that was the ceiling and all that. Well, he got Sam Darnold, by the way. Maybe he's the future. You never know, Joe. But you just look in a guy like Shanahan, that sets teams and franchises back tremendously. When you trade up all of that, and we talked about this yesterday, but when you hit in the backdraft, when you hit in the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, Mr. Irrelevant, when you hit on guys like a George Kittle and a Fred Warner and a Deebo Samuel later on, it makes you feel a little bit better. Now, having said all that, with the Aaron Rodgers thing, let's say they make the playoffs next year, right? Cool. Then what?
I mean, but making the playoffs for the Jets is a high watermark.
Yeah, but
I mean, they have the 2 AFC Championship appearisappearances with Sanchez.
It's New York City, though,
I know,
right?
but
the
Jets fans
there.
are. And I listen to Greeny. I can't stand the guy, but I listen to him every morning, and he's miserable. The Jets fan existence is miserable. We are seeing it through the prism of Kansas City and the Niners and whatever. You're a Raider fan,
yes.
You just want to be in the playoffs.
I do, but at the same time, we were just there a year ago, and my God, just at this point, I just want a quarterback of the future. That's all I care about. We talked about this. It's actually interesting now we're getting back on this because you've been a big proponent of this of, would I rather have gone all the way to the NFC Championship and lose or be a Jacksonville Jaguars who, let's face it, I have the quarterback for the next 5 or 10 years maybe now.
You'd think. I mean, right? Yes, I know. And there's an optimism wrapped around that. Everything that Jacksonville does, you're like, wow, well, Trevor's ascending.
Yes.
And he's got all these levels that he can hit.
But I guess the flip side of that would be, well, you're getting all this done now before he has to get paid fat. And we were talking about that E-Dog, Evan Giddings, he's a Chargers fan. He's like, they better win this year because you're going to have to pay Justin Herbert. And after that happens, it's going to be very difficult. And even in that division with Patrick Mahomes anyways, to be competing down the line in that conference.
The Chargers are an interesting case study. I mean, they're different. Obviously, Herbert, the young quarterback, but like they're not credible. And I think people around the league view them as still kind of a sloppy organization.
Yeah, Spanos, it's going to have that. It's just now Willard is a big proponent of that team's never going to win because of what the owner is, with what the franchise is about.
I'm kind of with them. I mean, I think in the NFL you can have a singular season, but you normally go back to wherever your base is as an organization. The Jets' base has been drafting in the top 8 yearly. I mean, like their best quarterback season was the first 8 games of Brett Favre when they traded for him. Chad Pennington 20-something years ago.
That was the Brady draft too.
I mean, like I'm just saying, like I understand everything you're saying. I just think when you look at it through their prism, they're saying to themselves, like, we're going to be fired if we don't do something big, and we need I hate to call Aaron Rodgers as a grown-up, but we need a grown-up at quarterback. We failed with Sam Darnold, right? A high draft pick. We failed with Zach Wilson. Yep. We need to go get a veteran. I mean, like if I told you right now that Aaron Rodgers had a better season than he had this year, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're in the playoffs.
Like the Jets, given if you could roll over the production that they got from last year into this year, and we know it's not that simple.
And they did sign Alan Lazard, by the way, free agency.
Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo. I'm not here to defend Aaron Rodgers,
totally.
But I understand why they're doing it.
Well, I just think it's incredibly. Even if they make the playoffs this one year, what if he opts out next year? What if he's just like, you know what, guys?
Well, that's where if you make the deal for him, to me, you have to have so much guaranteed money in the restructured deal to lock him into not wanting to leave.
So that's going to be fascinating. And again, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because it is the biggest storyline as it pertains to NFL free agency. And it does kind of change the balance a little bit in the NFC if he moves over to the AFC. Maybe you didn't really view the Packers as a huge champion contender, but it changes a little bit.
I just think Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo. So trying to use any logic with discussing him.
I get it.
Like, the guy's waited for so long. Dog, are you going or are you not?
He loves the attention. I mean, he's talking, I guess, to, what is it, or Ian Rappaport or whoever's, the Pat McAfee show's happening today. Is he talking to them or not? I don't know. But again, free agency officially starts 1 o'clock Pacific time.
He's a diva. We don't use that word on him.
No, he is.
He's a massive diva.
He is.
And he's an unbelievable talent, but like the guy's a weirdo.
No, he's totally. And I think he's hurt his reputation. If we just want to get into that,
yeah, I agree
tremendously within the last couple of years. All right, from Aaron Rodgers to Sam Darnold, because I think this may be.
Vontae was so right. Seeing the reaction yesterday on Sam Darnold. I underestimated how many people really think that he could be that dude.
Sorry, not to cut you off, specifically with Brian Baldinger, who joined you guys yesterday. Nothing but rave reviews from Baldy, and you guys are talking about him. And Vontae's like, listen, I can't press back on Baldy. The guy watches the film on him.
I know.
But for Baldy to gas him up that much only to say he makes a lot of mistakes when pressured, dog, that's literally the quarterback position. If you're making mistakes 100%. When pressured, then you suck. I'm sorry.
What was the one reason why everyone fell in love with Brock Purdy? Because when he was pressured, he would make plays.
Yes.
And you're not going to make plays on every single possession, but he did a really good job either escaping, throwing with a guy in his face mask. Tom Brady said, you don't get paid to throw from a clean pocket. Anyone can do that. You get paid to throw with a guy barreling down face mask to face mask. Now, obviously, you can't hit in the head anymore, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And so, when you say that, it's like, oh, wait a minute. It's like Player X struggles when you pressure him when he has the ball in his hands. Like, I don't want that basketball player on my team.
No, and then maybe the flip side of that is he's always had so much pressure in his face constantly, and maybe he's just not the same player anymore. Or maybe you get him under Kyle Shanahan, and it changes everything. The quarterback guru, the boy genius, just get him in Shanahan's system. Make it easy for him, Shasky. He's got the arm. I didn't know this, by the way. He's only 25.
I know.
He's so young.
I know.
It's crazy that 2018 draft class feels like forever ago. It was only 5 years ago, and I didn't realize he was that young still.
He's 1 year older than Kenny Pickett.
That's wild.
Joe Burrow and him, I think, are the same age.
That's wild.
I know.
He's been in the league for so long, and I forget how young he was with that USC team. So, is there a possibility, Joe Shasky, I'm looking at you right now, is there a possibility we are talking about Sam Darnold being QB1 in week 1 of the NFL regular season? Is it possible?
Week 1, I'm sure there's a possibility. Yes, I would be foolish to
You think that has to be-
underrate anything when it comes to the Niners and quarterback.
Does that think you injuries aside? Injuries
Joey,
aside.
if you told me today, if we found out there was a Trey Lance trade, I don't think I'd be that shocked.
Wow, really?
Dude, I have no feel for what they've got going on.
Really? I mean, you brought it
really
into the chat yesterday that do you think the Texans would trade a high second rounder for him?
I don't want him traded.
No. The hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It just always be contacting Shasky. Come on, that was a good. It was a fun question.
So, like for example, you look at the Texans, right? Let's just take a deep breath, everyone. Let's look at the Texans and the Titans. The Titans GM is from the 49ers. He's been gobbling up, lesser role players from the 49ers. The Texans, D'Amico's taking some of our guys. Jimmy Ward's going down there, and so I look at it and I say, well, does D'Amico know Trey Lance? I know that's not his side of the ball. You're a defensive-minded guy. It's your first ever draft pick. Is it the worst thing in the world if they trade down, take the best defensive player, and then trade for someone like a Trey Lance he's still super young, super raw. You can work with him. You have no expectations. You've been god awful the last couple of years. So there's some runway for him to develop in real time. It's just a thought that crossed my mind. I want Trey on the team. I want to see Purdy, Trey, Darnold. I want all of them to compete, and I want the best man to win. I believe in competition. But if they made a trade, would it surprise me? No, because I have no feel for what they've got going on.
That's Joe Shasky. That's a tease for what's coming up next on the Morning Roast. He's going to be joining Bonte Hill. Again, Warriors, they're taking on the Los Angeles Clippers as their road trip begins tonight in LA. We'll have coverage of that at 6 o'clock. Warriors Live again. Free agency officially begins 1 o'clock Pacific time. We'll have all that coverage right here, all the news and notes, all the different stuff coming up right here, 95.7 The Game. Don't go anywhere. Morning Roast next. This was the pregame show. I am Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM at HD1 San Francisco. An Odyssey station.
Attention men, if you have ED, PE, or low libido, or if you're always tired, weak, and gaining weight, you could be suffering from low testosterone, a common condition in men over 40.